Hello, everybody, and welcome to this video, which will be the first in a series of the history of modern and contemporary art, according to me, the only person that matters here. Jokes. But we are going to be talking about, we're basically going to be starting in ancient Greece. So we'll be talking today more about the Greek art up through the Gothic period. One of the things that is super fascinating is that if you really want to think about it, expressionism, abstract art, abstract forms, things of that nature have been around and were modern art at the time, obviously, but could technically be considered in the same vein as a lot of modern art and modern expressionism, more so than what happened basically in the Renaissance. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Oh, and other things too. We're going to be focusing on Western art more so than anything else for the time being. There will be moments where we go back to cave paintings and then we will go over to the Far East and things of that nature, and even in the Americas. But for right now, just to crash course this thing, we're going to focus on the Western canon, if you will. There were two kind of periods in Greek art. We have the ancient Greek and then the classical Greek. And the thing about the ancient Greek, well, actually all Greek art, most of it only, as far as paintings go, really we're only looking at vases and stuff like jugs and crap like that now, because a lot of it either doesn't exist anymore because of time or because of things like walls falling down and stuff like that. So in ancient Greek pottery, and we'll talk about statues and sculpture in just a little bit here too. But with the ancient Greek pottery, forms were different. It was like geometric forms were used way more than actual like realistic forms. So when we would have people on the vases, they would be like their torsos were triangles and their arms and legs were rectangles or lines or whatnot. Animals were just big rectangles with little squares over here and rectangles here and there and things of that nature. And it wasn't until we get into the classical Greek period where we have things like the red figures, where instead of painting onto the vase itself, the figures, the red pottery would be almost outlined to where the figures that you're seeing are what the pottery actually looks like, and the rest of the pottery is painted. And then like eyes and stuff like that would be painted on the figures to make it a little bit more real. When we are talking about the difference between ancient Greek and classical Greek, like statues, the statues and stuff like that were very stiff. Like there wasn't a lot of movement. Whereas with classical Greek, there is more emphasis on proportion and movement and all this other stuff. So the best way to compare this is if you can imagine, if you're as old as me, the original Star Wars figures, the little ones right here that just had arms that went like this and legs that went like that. That's like more ancient Greek. And then the action figure, like the G.I. Joe figures with like my head turns, my arms move in all these different directions, my legs bend, and like that's more of the classical Greek. Once Alexander the Great comes into power, we move into the Hellenistic period. And this is where realism was being pushed a little harder. The paint back then, back in this period, is still like pigment mixed with things, whether it's like wax or egg tempera and stuff like that. This period focused a little bit more on form and a little bit more on figures, trying to bring a little bit more realism compared to things that happened prior. Once we get into the Byzantine period, this is where a lot of very religious things are focused on. And not only is it that, but we're moving away from kind of the realism of the Hellenistic period into more, again, expressionistic things. Like a lot of this stuff like reminds me more of like German expressionism, which we will get to way later. But elongated figures, heavy outlines, a lot of gold to symbolize like purity and holiness and all this other stuff and wealth. But again, during this time, artists really aren't signing paintings, they're not signing anything that they're working on. It's more of the people who pay for these things, which are churches usually and the government. You're just making this for them. Like, you are nobody. They are the ones who were like flipping the bill for this, so it is their thing. So people do kind of know some people who do stuff, but for the most part, it's just for the religious aspect. There haven't really been academies made, art criticism made, art history being made, big patrons and curators. None of the stuff has happened yet. So there is no like rock star artist yet. That happens a little bit later. We move into Romanesque kind of stuff. Now, this is where a lot of the same principles of the Byzantine period are in place, but what we have now more is the hierarchical thing where perspective is still shit during this time. But when somebody is important or something is important, it is very big. And things that aren't as important are smaller. So this is how people can look at something and go, oh, that must be Jesus because he's freaking huge. Or that's the Virgin Mary because she's bigger than every other person on this thing. From here, we're still using egg tempera, doing all the stuff. We're moving into the Gothic period. And when we get into the Gothic period, people are still kind of starting to come out as artists. But for the most part, most art is being made by workshops or guilds. And what this means is that somebody like the church or the government hires this guild or this workshop to make a bunch of things. And then the people who work at that guild or who are a part of that guild go and they all work on the stuff. So it's more of a community effort from these people, way more than just an individual person. Okay. From here, we are going to start moving into more realism. But because of the paints that are being used, you still can't get that shape, that shadow, that roundness, that dimensional quality, the lush, vibrant layering and balance that you will once you start using oil paints. Now, during like, not necessarily this time, but around the 7th century in like Afghanistan, they were coming up with some sort of oil paint. But the oil paint itself that we know from the Renaissance and stuff like that is still like a couple hundred years out. But this period here is really the precursor into moving from everything that happened pre-Renaissance to the Renaissance. So basically, the Renaissance is when everything happens. Art history starts. Curators start. The art market kind of starts to begin. Patrons are now not just the church. You know, the church is still obviously paying for a lot of stuff, but, you know, there's all sorts of other things happening here. And then we finally start to get the rock star artists. And a lot of things that came from the Renaissance are still with us today. And most of those things, some people will say, are a huge problem in the art world. But that's for you to judge. I'm just giving you the facts. The next video will be about the Renaissance. This is probably Thanksgiving for those of you when this video drops, and there is a Black Friday sale at mattwallart.com, and if you use this code, you get 20% off of selected paintings, all chapbooks and paperback books. But if you are a member of this channel, you get 50% off. And if you want to be a member of this channel and come to all the live streams and little workshops that we do, click the link down below, join the crew, you get 50% off through Cyber Monday. I hope this was inspirational, motivational, and now you'll be able to go creational. Okay? That's the idea here. So until next time, I will talk to you all later.